Hey, FlimsyLunchTray here, and welcome to World of Warships for our Friday edition video, which is featuring the Tier 10 Italian battleship, the Cristoforo Colombo. You guys voted for Hindenburg, which took the first place last week, and then I always do the runner-up the following week, and the following week it is the Cristoforo Colombo. This is a battleship I've waited a long time to actually finally decide to go up the line and grind. There's so many ships in the game. I'm getting there. We're getting closer and closer to collecting all of our tier 10 ships. But she offers a fairly unique playstyle. Not that it's something I would say as unique as maybe something like as in comparison to St. Vincent or other tier 10 battleships in the game. Probably between her decent concealment, her 16 main battery guns, her exhaust smoke generator, which we're going to use here. Several times I've used the exhaust smoke generator to help cruisers out. There was actually I think it was a Goliath I saved, and he was really thankful. And then I got shotgunned by a Gato. So it's really nice. So I dumped the smoke there for him. Now the smoke screen, I would say on Cristoforo Colombo, it is definitely useful, but at the same time, it's really taxing on when it is or when it is not useful. Mainly due to the main battery firing range, at which if you smoke up your detectability range, which your smoke fire penalty is 16.7 kilometers. And if you've built not for range and not using your spotting aircraft, your gun range is 18.91 kilometers. So I've gone for the main battery reload in slot 6, excuse me. So often that means it tends to be I have to wait for my fire penalty just to go down. So your 18.9 kilometer firing range, that fire penalty bloomed to decrease, and then use the exhaust smoke generator and exfil very quickly. So what I do like, in particular, that's very beneficial to have here on the Colombo, is I definitely recommend to get the most out of the ship, is running Luigi Sanzanetti here on the ship. Now you're going to get an enhanced skill on the gun feeder, which is a negative 60% main battery shell type switching time. And then after that, you also get a built-in 30% shell swap time, or maybe that's how I should start that off first, because they buffed the Italian ships since they tend to have a longer reload time when they did some commander or skill reworking, as it were. So it's really beneficial to have Luigi Sanzanetti on the ship for a few reasons. So let me say what those few reasons are. The first one, which you're going to see here when we hit this enemy cruiser, which we're going to do 17.5k in, is we're going to activate our concealed reserves. And this activates upon achieving 100 main gun hits and extends the action time of all consumables plus 10%, which is really beneficial and helpful. With 16 guns, you're bound to get there. But I will definitely say, when we're talking about these guns, and I'll talk more about this in my armor piercing and more at length shortly, but they don't have the best range. I mean, your Sigma's 1.5. Most battleships in the game are probably around 1.8. The higher, the better. Sigma is the chance of the shells landing in the center where you're aiming. And without taking, I've taken the aiming systems mod 1, which helps your dispersion horizontally and vertically. Horizontally, 233.73 meters. Vertical, 140.24 kilometers. So basically what Wargaming has done, typically when they give a ship a lot of guns, a great number of guns, again, 16, and these are 381 millimeter guns here on the Colombo. When they put a lot of guns on the ship, they tend to nerf two things, or at least one of two things. One is the reload time. So if you do not take the main battery mod 3 in the 6th slot, your reload time stock is 37 seconds. So, but with your main battery reload time drops down to 32.56 seconds. Now it's a little bit better here in this video because we also have a adrenaline rush ticking in, helping us out here. So one thing is they nerf I was just talking about your accuracy, but they also nerf the reload. So those are two things that tend to go hand in hand when a ship gets a lot of main battery guns. And this match is a bit of a difficult one. We've been pushed back. We haven't been like trying to kite purposely to go all the way to the J10 line, or just J line in general. But in this example, you get to see Cincinnati at work, as we're going to lose out on this battle, unfortunately. So, in all honesty, I like running Luigi Cincinnati on my Venezia more. But if you're more of a main Battleship player, then you won't regret running him on Cristoforo Colombo. And it's a pretty standard build that I have on the ship, and I'll go over that tomorrow. But speaking of utilizing Luigi Cincinnati on that enhanced skill with the main shell switching time, you're going to see, I'm going to give you a couple examples of that and how just beneficial it is, because you really want to be utilizing your armor piercing when you get the opportunity to do so. Here we get a little cheeky in finding the gap in the island to shoot this Alaska, which we're going to just do almost 11k to. As he's a bit angled in, you can see we 9 of the 16 guns hit, but not all of them penetrated. And we still did a decent amount of damage. Now, one thing that I really like about Colombo is these rear turrets are 360-degree turning turrets. So we simply just shift more in because we don't want to push out. There's a Kearsarge and some other ships there that are going to give us a lot of hate. We simply switch our main turrets, their side they're on. We switch to the armor piercing. And here we're going to get even more damage in, being over 24,000 damage. So do utilize the AP. This has among the heaviest AP broadside salvo in the game. I don't think it's the top anymore. It's actually when I checked or compared it, at least in the WoW's wiki article, they cited that was where is it at? Slightly heavier than Vermont's, and that's just because of the sheer number of guns. And speaking of Vermont, we get to 14.6k sap salvo there on the Vermont. Now, he does something I'm not expecting, and he decides to turn back in. We've had a lot of submarine issues this game in the mid-map, and it's been difficult hunting and finding them, so our Ohio is kind of playing more reserved, since he has a pretty short air depth charge range, but he's played a really good game. And so again, we're going to switch to the AP. And again, having those 360-degree turrets when you push in is so helpful with Colombo. You know, only once you're kiting away does it become more of a negative aspect of the ship when you need to rotate those forward turrets. So we see a ping there. We do get the kill. I think it was about almost 30k damage, roughly speaking, as I was being a bit more sweaty trying to get to that sub kill. So let's talk more about this semi-armor piercing, and let's talk more about the armor piercing in general here. One of the things I really like this semi-armor piercing, has been waiting for this defense to push up, is we're about to do, over 27,000 damage to him bow in, just because these guns are just amazing in terms of their performance. Now the sap does a max damage of 12,500. And then the AP does a max damage of 12,000. But the SAP has a penetration of 96mm, and the overmatch capability is 26mm, which means we're going to be doing a lot of damage on this defense as he pushes into us. I was hoping that I'd get a little more out of this game, but it's been a bit difficult. But you definitely want to utilize your SAP on cruisers, even battleships, when you get more of the superstructure on the top half. You want to be careful not to shoot too low, as you know, you aim lower maybe with your AP, but with your semi-armor piercing, you want to raise your shot a little more. Otherwise, you're going to get a lot of non-pins. Now here, this Ohio, he's capping the base, and so we want to reset him. And that's a nice 23k salvo, as he was going pretty slow and reversing, as we are able to utilize our spotter plane there, right? So a spotter plane helps us out quite a lot, when otherwise we would be stuck at that 18.91 kilometer range. Now I see that Ohio has fired at me, and I'm assuming I was going pretty slow. He's going to kill me, is my what I'm gambling. So I decided to go ahead and open up. So of course their smoke fire penalty is going to give us away to the defense, who, by the way, we do over like 75,000 damage to, but because he's British and has the really good heal, we're just simply not going to be able to do enough to kill him, and he's going to get us in return, of course, as we're going to go out here. Going on next, speaking of defense and speaking of salvage of victory, this ship is good against a Kitakami. So basically, when you're at a Kitakami and you see, you know, whether it's a Vermont, you see Ohio, you see, you know, a lot of battleships in the game with their armor piercing, and Kitakami, you just want to go broadside, just because the shells are just going to harmlessly pass right through your citadel, and they won't arm, right? And we're trying to get a good salvo there on Yodo, but he turned in, unfortunately. But you're going to see this Kitakami, who was here in the middle of the map, but since has moved over to the flank, as the submarine on the enemy team has been really busy wiping out our teammates there on that 1-2 line. So we'll see if we can get a salvo in on the Yodo just in time. We're not here as we're really focused on him, and that's when the Kitakami pops up. But don't worry, we have another salvo reloading on the way here in this arms race mode. So that's a 20.6k salvo on the Yodo, as we're really needing to get kills here. As you can see, our team has been suffering greatly as our Holland takes out the Shimakaze. One of the things that makes Kitakami pretty good is actually has an engine boost on top of the exhaust smoke generator. But I don't think the Kitakami has access to exhaust smoke generator at this point in time. So we're going to be cheeky. That's kind of why I like playing this mid-range type positioning here. And we're going to get our Dev Strike and getting the extension of the main battery firing range. So if you can get a kill early on in the game with Cristoforo Colombo and you're pairing him with Luigi Sanzanetti, it's really beneficial and really helpful overall. Again, I'm going to give you an example of the SAP here. Again, we can just nose in. It's the start of the game. We're switching our main battery guns right to left. Again, super convenient. And I decide that this, I don't think this ship, it's a British cruiser, is available yet in the game, but I love shooting British cruisers with this in my armor piercing, as you just do a lot of damage. So already just only 20k over to that Monmouth. Okay, not sure that's exactly how you pronounce it, but it's Malta. Do not be deceived by the AA capabilities here, as I shoot down all 8 aircraft. We only did 4k plane damage. Over to just behind us, we have an Austin who was utilizing his defensive AA, but he definitely ate the flak there for sure. And it's also, after taking that shot, I would have loved to be able to use the exhaust smoke generator here just as a safety precaution and turn out, but it wasn't possible because of that 16.7 kilometer smoke fire penalty. And speaking more of the AA on Cristoforo Colombo sucks. It's not like terrible. The WoW's wiki says it's fairly powerful. I think I would disagree a little bit with that. In terms of all, if I compare to the current tier 10 battleships in the game, out of the 27, she ranks 18. Her long-range AA is only 4.6 kilometers, so at an AA strength rating of 58, and compared to the Loria, which has an AA strength of 46. So she does have better AA than something like the GK, the Loria, the RP Yamato, and just Yamato in general. But when you have your best, when there's a CV match, your really best bet is hoping that they're tier 8 CVs and not a tier 10 CV and not a super CV. I'm not sure quite what I did. I mean, I'm a battleship over here on the flank. I mean, I do have the Ibuki's AA helping us out here, but this CV has decided he's going to focus us all throughout this entire match, which he doesn't seem maybe to be, unless he just picked up the ship and hasn't fully built into his commander or built into the planes, and doesn't really know exactly how to avoid flak. But we honestly, of all the games I've played, I get an unreasonable amount of plane kills in this battle on this enemy CV player. And we're going to keep pushing up, and maybe we get to take some shots at him for foreshadowing. But beyond the planes, when we talk about the, how do I phrase this? Because I feel like I'm going to be wrong. The anti-submarine warfare airstrike, you do get a range of 11 kilometers. So that's really helpful. You get 2 charges, aircraft HP, their hit point of 2,000. So having the 11 kilometer is really helpful. In terms of the playstyle of Colombo, she's really excels best at the mid-range mid-range playstyle, not necessarily long range and not a brawler. That mainly is because her salvos are just so punishing, but also due to their great lack of accuracy with that 1.5 sigma and poor horizontal and vertical dispersion. So, you know, a lot of times you'll see, I have seen Colombo players skip on shooting a destroyer just to shoot a cruiser, battleship, or even aircraft carrier, getting a 20k salvo in, just because they're a bigger target and you're more apt to land more of your shells, okay? So she is definitely mid-range, and when I say mid-range, we're talking around, I would say, play around her concealment. When you do build into max concealment here on the Colombo, you're looking at 14.05 kilometer. So I tend to try to play somewhere around that. Usually I say say mid-range is like 12 to 15 kilometers, 12, 16. That's kind of how I say mid-range is, and that is for tier 10, high tier. Of course, that's a lot different when you go into the lower tiers. Those numbers probably become even smaller because you don't want to be pushing into any type of brawling ships, as an example. So you're going to see an example, maybe a little bit of that later here. But after getting our A defense expert, which to me is just hysterical to get with this ship, we get to kill the fun police, which makes me quite happy. So continuing on here, so this is just how we're gonna end. We're gonna end the this video playing this game. Here you can see switching to the armor piercing. So when you learn the value of not just always sticking with the semi-armor piercing, but utilizing the armor piercing when possible, you get some really nice salvos like that on a broadside Yamato, and going for that cheek, that really weak place there. So I'm going to get my report in the CV player. Yeah, so that's really just the beauty when you can learn and understand the ability of switching between the semi-armor piercing and armor piercing. That's where I really like running Luigi Sanzanetti so far on the Cristoforo Colombo. And I would use this same build on my Loria, which I'll feature more so at some point in the near future. But for now, this game's kind of wrapping up here as we have 120,000 damage. So goal is we're going to try to get in here and deal with the submarines. There's still both enemy subs at play, in the Schultz and aircraft carrier. Now that submarine that was in D4, he hasn't been spotted for a while, so I have no idea where he is. So I'm waiting to see if I get spotted any sooner, or it's just going to be the Schultz. And that's what I've kind of predicted. It's Schultz is who's detecting me. Maybe Gato has pushed up. Maybe he's coming towards A. I don't really know. But I do want to be mindful and be able to be battle in. Now, I will say it's helpful when you, again, when you do push in on this mid-range to close range play as the battle goes on, you having, again, those 360-degree rear turning turrets is just so helpful. I can't stress and say that enough. In terms of when the battle starts off, you're really going to be looking to play pretty passive play style. You know, beyond that 14, I'd say, you know, maybe it's 15, 16, 17, 18. And in the opening of the battle, just because, I mean, you do have good armor, you do have, you know, decent concealment, all those type of things, but you don't have a very large health pool on this ship. So we are going to get a shot off on the sub here, but let me just go ahead and read the WoW's wiki pros and cons. So the pros is that she has the largest number of main guns of all tier 10 battleships with 16 rifles. That's not becoming so relevant now when you are talking about Devastation. As an example, other ships in the game also have 16 rifles. Currently the heaviest AP broadside in the game, slightly heavier than Vermont's. Again, I don't know if this is still true, but because of the 16 guns, and that the fact that each of them hit for a max damage of 12,000 is quite serious. These sap shells can be extremely effective against angled and or lightly armored targets. You know, you saw those big salvos we get in a superstructure and on cruisers, even carriers. Built-in negative 30% shell swap time. Good main battery firing arcs. As I'm looking at the WoW's wiki, so I want to peek back over here. Both aft turrets can turn 360 degrees. good SAP and AP shells have very good shell velocity and low air drag. Good midsection external armor, useful to counter HE shells, so slightly resilient to certain high explosive depending on caliber that's being fired upon you and their penetration values. Access to the exhaust smoke generator consumable, and fairly good ship speed of 29.6 knots. I don't know if I would really say it's still... I mean, it's not terrible. It's not like it's at West Virginia or something like that. But it's okay, but, you know, more and more battleships are coming to the game that can easily outpace the Colombo. Cons, third smallest hit point pool among tier 10 battleships. Again, I don't know if that's still accurate, maybe a little bit outdated there. You don't have access, of course, to the high explosive. You have the second reload, worst reload speed in all tier class, only Vermont's is longer. Again, that could be different. I'm not entirely sure off the top of my head. Very poor accuracy compared to the tier 7 French battleship, the Lyon. Small gun caliber, AP shells cannot overmatch 27mm armor, as we're going to get a very spicy salvo in here on the enemy sub. Shortest main battery range of all tier 10 battleships. Virtually useless turtleback, can be overmatched by AP shells of 380mm and larger calibers, so you want to be mindful of your broadside. Enormous target with poor concealment. A defenses are short range, making them rather ineffective at preventing plane strikes. Most secondary mounts are 90mm and black penetration even with IFHE, so your secondaries are pretty useless. Very large turning circle radius and fairly slow rudder shifts. So I'm not going to spend too much time here on the post-battle results, but as an example on this of the mini games that you saw, you know, we did on 33,000 damage with the 48 planes shot down, which really shouldn't have been a thing in all honesty, but at least it was a tier 8 CV, so that was really the saving grace there, so don't let it deceive you with over the 2,000 base XP. And we took 82,000 damage in total there. You know, 73,000 on the Yamato, 43,000 on the Shikaku, and then what it looks like with premium count. So all said and done, I think the Colombo is a pretty decent, straightforward tier 10 Italian battleship. I think I'm a little more excited about the Loria now, with having that 457mm SAP and AP. Even though, you know, the ship the AA is worse. You don't have access to that exhaust smoke generator. So there's some things that you trade off for having much more accurate guns and fewer guns with a better reload time versus having more guns, exhaust smoke generator, and the slightly better AA. And of course, I don't think either ship necessarily has a large or robust health pool, with that being said. So, end of 2023, going into 2024, how do I feel about Colombo? Well, I think she still has her place in the game. I would have liked to have, maybe when I first started playing WoW, like maybe I would have been playing Cristoforo Colombo more. She's really frustrating, I think, if you try to keep playing her at long range, which is why I really don't take the aiming systems, or what is it called? Sorry, let me just pull this up here. I'm going to tell you right. In the slot 6, the gunfire control system mod 2, which gives you that plus 16% main battery firing range, which would bump you from 18.9 to 21.9. Just because I have access to spotter plane, and really this battleship excels best at the mid-range of, let's say, 12 to 15 kilometers, roughly speaking. So, but if you can get through the previous battleships, I didn't like playing the Cracciolo, I didn't like playing the Veneto, I didn't even like playing the Lepanto. To me, the Cristoforo Colombo is, I would say, let me look through the previous ships. Yeah, she's the best battleship of the entire tech tree when it comes to the Italian battleships. In my opinion, you may disagree, but she's much more enjoyable to play than any of the previous tier 10 battleships, at least in my opinion. So let's go bring this video to a close. Normally I would focus just one video, one battle, but I couldn't really get all the elements that I really wanted to include and showcase this ship much better. I mean, we had wins, we had losses, of course, but she's pretty standard, straightforward to play, with some unique characteristics with the rear 360-degree turning main battery turrets, having that exhaust smoke generator, and a lot of guns that can be really rewarding. Of course, as the longer you are able to stay in the game and send your damage numbers soaring higher and higher. So. Again, tomorrow we'll do an upgrade and command reload video here on the Colombo. So if you liked this video, give a thumbs up. If you didn't, give a thumbs down. Subscribe if you do want to see more. If you subscribe, thanks so much. I appreciate it. And we'll catch you next time. Take care.